Good morning. I'm Dr.M.MYTHILY from the Department of BBA. So today we are going to see the topic the inflation. So the topic inflation means not only in economy but even in investment. That is very important. So without inflation, we don't decide the investment options. We don't decide the demand and supply in economy. So it is very important concept. So the inflation paradox, mechanics drives and economic impact. That's what we are going to see today. So defining the inflation. So generally we know inflation is increase in prices, but it defines not only the increase in prices, also the decrease in the purchasing power of money. So the purchasing power of money is completely destructed due to high inflation. So let us see some myth about the inflation and the reality of inflation. So the myth of the inflation is common misconception is inflation means prices are high. A sudden spike in the prices of oil is inflation, but that is a myth. So not only the price increase in a particular commodity decides the inflation. So the academic definition of the reality is inflation is a sustained upward trend in the general price level. No, it doesn't include a price increase in a single commodity. It is a recurring phenomena where unit of money buy less over time. So automatically purchasing money, power of money is decreasing. Your money is going to buy only the less amount of commodity as well as service. So that is the reality. So the real definition of inflation is a high rise in prices as which is followed by the disruption of purchasing power of money. So coming to the yardstick. So how will you find out the erosion of value? So for example, December 2007, consumer price index is 193.6. So in December 2008, consumer price index is 223.8. So simply consumer price index is the measure which is used to denote the inflation. So generally from this picture you can understand 2007 the price index is 193.6 and in 2008 it is 223.8. Automatically the rise is 15.6%, which says the inflation is started to increase. Again the economy is in inflation. So there are other related terminology is also associated, also used along with inflation, that is deflation, that is a state of falling prices, that is rise in money's value. Disinflation, a slowing down of the rate of inflation, that means prices still rise but slower rate. So there are these two are the additional concept which is used along with deflation. So a state of falling prices as well as a slowing down in the rate of inflation is called disinflation. So let us move to the types of inflation. So based on the intensity, based on the speed of inflation, we are dividing it into four major types. That is creeping inflation, walking inflation, galloping inflation, and hyperinflation. So creeping inflation is which is very required. So 2 to 3%. In this inflation, we are in safe zone. So this inflation is required by all the economy. So for their growth. So it is the lubricant which is helpful for the development of the economy. Next, let's move to the walking inflation. The name itself starts saying it is walking somewhat, it is speedier than the creeping inflation. So it is actually a warning zone. So, but still it is predictable, but requires monitoring. So the government as well as banks required to predict it, required to monitor the inflation in this state, which is called as walking inflation. So next is galloping inflation. So this is called as crisis zone. So actually in this kind of inflation, the economy actually shatters. So when this kind of economy comes, so during the war, during strikes, during disputes, so internal political problem inside the country, all these things makes the galloping inflation. So next is hyperinflation. This is the extreme level of inflation where the collapse occurs, money becomes worthless. So what is the key insight? Yeah, moderate single digit rate maintains faith in the system, but double digit inflation destroys confidence. So there are other two types of inflation. So based on the demand and cost. So demand inflation starts when the income start to increase. So automatically when the income start to increase, people will have additional disposable income. So what will they do? They create additional demand. So automatically when a demand for the product increases, the price level also start to rise. So that the price level rises due to increased income is called as demand pull inflation. So too much of money chasing too few goods. So here aggregate demand exceeds available output. So next is push inflation. So automatically the cost of raw material, equipment, tools, everything start to increase. So which leads to increased input cost for the manufacturers and the producers. So which automatically lead to the price level rise. So it leads to a supply shock, overall increase in production cost, wages, raw materials, which forces the prices to increase. So these are also the main two kind of inflation, demand pull as well as cost push inflation. So demand pull inflation is actually increases in what I already said. So it is increases in total spending. So because people having higher amount of disposable income in their hands, so what will they do? Automatically they want to spend the disposable income. So they want to purchase goods. So they automatically created artificial demand will be created. So the price level start to increase. But here you can notice the output cannot grow. The output is still remains the same, but the prices are skyrocketing due to the demand by the people because of their income increase in total spending. So next, the drivers of demand. So there are two views, monetarist view and the Keynesian view. There are two views. So classical view is called as monetarist view. So inflation is always and everywhere. It is a monetary phenomena. So we all know without inflation the economy cannot survive. So every economy in the world will have an inflation rate. That's what the classical view is saying. So coming to Keynesian view, so it is real sector. Inflation actually really starts from the non-monetary sectors. That is from the consumption, investment, government spending and net exports. So everything leads to the inflation. So let's move to the cost push inflation. So as we already said, the cost of raw materials, so organization of petroleum corporations, they start to increases their fuel rates. Still the fuel is the fundamental for manufacturing. So automatically which leads to the increase in the cost of raw material, transport cost will increase. So profit will be pushed, firms exercising power to widen profit margin. So automatically what will firms do? To match the cost, they increases the price level, which may lead to the inflation, but the national outputs won't be much higher. The output remain the same due to increase in raw material, due to increase in the price of raw material, other inputs, the prices of the goods will increase. So result stagflation risk, prices rise while output and employment fall. So the prices start to rise, but the output and employment start to fall. So this is called as the cost push inflation. So far we have seen two types of inflation. So the demand pull as well as demand created by the customer due to the disposable income. So here the cost push inflation. So because of increase in the price of raw material, other inputs, the manufacturers start to increase the price. So these are the main two types of inflation. So other than based on the speed, we have divided as creeping, walking, galloping and hyperinflation. So far we see the two important classification of inflation. So the cycle, so this is the inflation cycle. So automatically, so due to union demand higher wages, so automatically wage increases, productivity gains, but the firm production cost also rise. Firm rise prices to maintain margin, so cost of living also rises. So we all know the cost of living is going to increase because of inflation. So people has to purchase lot of items with high prices. So automatically it leads to cost of living. So cost of living includes the rent they pay, the fuel prices, the grocery, everything which includes which will be included in the consumer price index. So let us move to the effects of inflation. Who will be the winners? Who will be the losers? So inflation arbitrarily redistributes income and wealth. So who are all called as the winners and who are all called as the losers? The winners are debtors. So usually the people who are getting money from the banks and from the institutional investors, from the money lenders, they are the winners. Why? Because they are paying back the money which is having less value only. So the money's value is increased due to inflation, but the real value is not increasing. And the speculators. So here the category comes speculators who purchase and sell for profit. So they actually gain during the period of inflation because they start to hoard goods, they go for black marketing, they try to hide things from the consumer, they try to sell at higher prices. So all these things will happen due to inflation because of rise in prices. Next is equity investors. So automatically the investors will gain because the firms are rising their price level. So automatically the profit is also going to rise. So the equity investor, the shareholders of the company will get has a chance to get lots of dividend due to the inflation, due to rise in prices, due to increase in profit. So these people are called as the winners of inflation. So let's move to the losers. Who are the losers? So the creditors, because they are giving money, but they are going to get a cheap money because the value of money is decreasing due to inflation. So even though they pay money to the debtors, but they receive the money which is having lesser value. So they are the losers, as well as the bond holders and savers. So they only get a nominal amount of interest rate during the period of inflation. So automatically they become the losers. So still we say there will be an increase in price, increase in wages, but still salaried workers feel, because they are going to get only fixed income, but the price is going to increase in case of inflation. So the salaried workers feel it will be very difficult for them to pay the rent and other expenses, even though they get the higher prices, higher wages. So this is the effect of inflation on debtors, speculators, equity investors, who will be more profitable, and the losers are creditors and bondholders and savers and salaried workers, who is going to lose the money, who in terms of the value of money is going to decrease during the period of inflation. So psychology of uncertainty. So that is the main point in anticipated versus unanticipated inflation. So society learn to live with it. So even though we say inflation is high, we are in inflated society, but still we are living in the inflated society only. People start practicing to live with the inflation. So contracts include inflation premiums, redistribution is minimal. So we know inflation will be there and we have to pay for the inflation. The price is going to increase in future also. We are ready to accept it. So the unanticipated inflation, that is the real danger. We don't know. So for example, the gold prices, we could relate it. So the unexponential increase in the gold prices make the middle class people as well as the low class people, the gold became a dream for them. This can be the best example for unanticipated inflation. So the real danger is investors cannot estimate cost and revenue, create a risk premium that helps a long-term commitment. So automatically, so the anticipated inflation will do good and the people start know to live with it. But in case of anticipated inflation, it creates a lot of problem as well as danger to the society. So this is the case study, German catastrophe, 1923. So you could see the price level start to increase at the rate of 5,470%. So prices increase 1.3 billion times. So cost of bread 2 lakh marks. So marks is the currency of Germany. So automatically it is called as hyperinflation. It is the total destruction of faith in the monetary system. So the people start to die due to this kind of hyperinflation. So recently Sri Lanka faced this kind of inflation. We all know the price of coffee is 500 rupees in Sri Lanka due to internal dispute as well as due to internal politics. So strategic outlook. So usually, even though we call inflation is acceptable term, we have to live with the inflation, but it is actually the public enemy, number one public enemy. So driven by excess demand, supply shocks, the trade-off is mild inflation. So we can accept the creeping inflation to certain level. High inflation destroys savings. So it impacts artificial scarcity, arbitrary inequality and capital flight. So the rich become rich and the poor become poor. That is the impact. So inflation is a hidden tax. Rising of inflation is a primary indicator of governance failure. So inflation, even though inflation is the known phenomena, so it is very, very important in the point of view of economy as well as in the point of view of investment. So inflation should be given proper consideration and importance, as well as the monetary policies and fiscal policies should be framed in such a way that should match with the inflation level. So the overall summary we seen the what is inflation. So what is inflation? Rise in prices and decrease in the value of money can be called as the inflation. So the myth is the increase in inflation in particular commodity doesn't define the inflation. The overall price increase is called as the inflation. General price level increase is called as inflation. So, and there are types of inflation: creeping, walking, galloping, hyperinflation. So double digit inflation is going to kill the economy. So demand pull inflation, which is created due to increased demand due to increased income from the customers, from the people. Cost push inflation is due to increased prices of raw materials. The manufacturers start to increase the price of the commodity. So it will have a good effect on debtors, speculators, and equity investors, but bad effect on creditors, bondholders, savers, and salaried workers. So the anticipated inflation will do good. Unanticipated will inflation create damage to the society. So hope you all understood the concept of inflation. Thank you.